Have you ever heard of the expression that something is made with love? Could it be possible that the energy with which we approach certain tasks can be indirectly fed to others? Can we convey our emotions through the things that we create? I find myself asking these questions quite often, particularly when I'm thinking about which videos to make next. So can I show my interest and care in what I do through how I do it? These are some of the themes that we're going to be exploring today as we dive into the magical realism of Like Water for Chocolate, a novel by Laura Esquivel. The story is set in the 1840s within rural Mexico in the house of Señora Elena, the widow of the de la Garza family. Here we meet her three daughters, the eldest Rosaura, then Gertrudis, and then the youngest Dita. Nacha and later Chencha are the head cooks looking after the household. Each chapter is a different month, centered around a specific recipe, which informs the themes of the chapter. The story centers around the life of Dita, the youngest daughter of Mama Elena. In the family, the youngest daughter is said to never be allowed to marry because she has to look after the mother and father. And so throughout her life, Dita was subject to this oppressive rule of Mama Elena. And the book explores how she fought for her freedom and how she conveyed her emotions through food. When her one true love, Pedro, came to ask for her hand in marriage, he was denied, and instead Mama Elena offered Rosaura, the eldest, to Pedro. Interestingly, Pedro accepted, but the only reason he said he accepted this was to be closer to Dita and remain in her life. And as can be imagined, Dita finds it extremely difficult when Rosaura and Pedro get married and later have a child. Because she's grown up in the kitchen with Nacha, she later takes on the role of the head cook of the family. When it was her first anniversary of being the head cook, Pedro brought her roses, and Mama Elena of course demanded that she throw them away, but these flowers meant more to Dita than anyone could realize. They reawakened in her the love that she had for Pedro, as he confirmed he still loved her. Dita clasped the bouquet to her chest so tightly that when she got to the kitchen, the roses, which had been mostly pink, had turned quite red from the blood that was flowing from Dita's hands. The only way that she could really express her emotions or show her love was through the food that she made. There are several events in the book that highlight this, and we see the significance of what Dita is feeling on those around her. At Pedro and Rosaura's wedding, she was tasked with making the cake. And as she was mixing in the eggs for the batter, she was crying and her tears were falling. After the festivities, as the guests enjoyed the cake, there was a sudden feeling of strong emotion that overcame them all. They all started crying and longing for their loved ones, and they eventually got so sick that they started vomiting. The other major recipe where she could really express her love for Pedro was when she makes these quails in rose sauce from the roses that Pedro gave her. It caused Gertrudis to start burning up with desire, literally smoking and setting things on fire. Of course, Mama Elena and Rosaura didn't like it, but Pedro mentioned it was worthy of the divine. And then towards the end of the book, she makes these chilies and walnut sauce for everyone at the wedding of her niece, and it made them all want to run off with one another and make love. So these recipes kind of convey her emotions and make other people feel something as they eat it. It's almost as if they experience her emotions through all of their senses. Even though she cannot express them, she can put them into something that she creates and gives to others. This is highlighted quite beautifully when one of the characters, Dr. Brown, who looks after Dita when she has a hard time dealing with her mother, he relays to her that his grandmother said that everyone is born with a fire burning inside them that needs oxygen to stay alive. There are certain people in life that will try to blow that flame away, and there are others that will ignite it. The oxygen, for example, would come from the breath of the person you love. The candle could be any kind of food, music, caress, word or sound. Each person has to discover what will set off those explosions in order to live, since the combustion that occurs when one of them is ignited is what nourishes the soul. That fire, in short, is its food. If one doesn't find out in time what will set off these explosions, the box of matches dampens and not a single match will ever be lit. I was quite intrigued by these quails in rose sauce, These were also shown in the movie directed by Alfonso Arau. I highly recommend watching it as well as reading the book. So let's get into the recipe for making these quails in rose sauce, but I'm going to be using chicken instead as I couldn't find any quail. The first thing we're going to do is cover the chicken in butter. You can also use quail like she does in the recipe. I'm using 1 kilo of chicken. You're going to season it and then put it in the oven at 180 degrees Celsius for about an hour and 15 minutes, and then the last 20 minutes crank it up to 200 degrees Celsius. The recipe calls for fresh roses, but I'm going to use dry ones that are food safe. And in the recipe it's mentioned, after the petals are removed from the roses, they're ground with the anise in a mortar. So I used 1 star anise and 3 dried rosebuds, which I then crushed in a pestle and mortar. Next we're going to mince 1 garlic clove and half of a bedaya or dragon fruit I'm using here. Try to get one with pink flesh so that the sauce turns nice and pink as well. We're going to brown the garlic in some butter and then add our rose and anise mixture. To this we're going to add 1 teaspoon of almond butter. In the recipe it calls for us to make a chestnut puree, but I couldn't find any chestnuts. Then add 1 tablespoon of honey and our crushed dragon fruit. I realised mine was looking a bit thick, so I added a little bit of water. Add a couple of drops of rose water after you take the sauce off the heat. Once the chicken is ready, take it out and serve with the sauce. I actually made a mistake here. In the recipe it called for us to cook the chicken in the sauce for 10 minutes, but I didn't do that. So if you're planning on doing this, make sure you cook the chicken in the sauce for a little bit as well. So this is what it's looking like. I've put some extra slices of dragon fruit here and garnished it with some rose petals so we can give it a taste. It has an interesting flavour. I think there might be too much star anise in here. It seems to be overpowering the flavour. You do get the rose, but not as much as you would expect. And the dragon fruit doesn't really add that much flavour. I think this is a really nice idea for Valentine's Day, using roses to make some sort of dish. But I don't think that this is for my palate. I think the star anise is a little bit too strong for me. Okay, so I added some of the cooking sauce, so some of the gravy that came out of the chicken when it was roasting, and it's tasting a lot better. Maybe I should have covered the chicken in the sauce at the end and put it in the oven to let it mix together. I know in the recipe it said to kind of let them infuse a little bit, so maybe I should have done that instead of trying to plate it in this way and eat it as a separate sauce and the chicken, because I think the juices are super important. I think you have to be careful with the balance of the flavours a little bit, and maybe adding the chestnuts would have diluted the flavour a little bit more because they have more water in them than the than the almond butter. And yeah, I really enjoyed reading this book. I enjoyed recreating this recipe. Let me know in the comments if I should try any other recipes from this book or from other books that you might recommend. Thank you everyone for watching. I'll see you in the next video.